sacrifice to reach this final eight. Like they say, many are called, few are chosen. Kator?
Well, and, and joining us to unpack the action, we have people who know the league inside out. And joining us to unpack the action, we have two people who know the league inside out. We have former women league star analyst Theresa. We call her Tima. We also have, and of course, we have Coach Habib, former league player, and now with Hot Co Basketball. Coach, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Kato. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, Philip, start with us in the Savannah Conference.
Yeah, so like I said, it's been an incredible season, 16 teams all together. We'll cut the ride down to 8 from Kano, Lagos, Abuja to Port Harcourt. So these teams have battled through sweat and sacrifices to reach this final 8.
The Savannah Conference, Atlantic Conference. The Savannah Conference was grouped into Group A and B, and the Atlantic Conference was also grouped into Group A and B. So in Group A of the Savannah Conference, we had the Boko City Chiefs, we had the Nigerian Customs, had the Correctional, and we have the Nile University. While in Group B, we have Kano Pillar, Bauchi Net, we have Kano Pillar, Bauchi Net, Gombe Bulls, and Plateau Pigs. So it was hosted in 2 venues. The first venue for Group A was Abuja, and the venue for Group B was Kano. So in Group A saw Boko City Chiefs dominate early. They lost only 1 game and they topped the group. Custom followed with their usual discipline, while the Nile University Spartans had their own to finish third. Then in Kano, the mighty Kano Pillars defended home court advantage. They were unbeaten in Group B, Gombe Bulls, Plateau Pigs, Bauchi, nobody could touch them. They were unbeaten on their home floor.
So the Atlantic Conference, on the other hand, told a different story entirely. It was faster, flashy, filled with very fresh narratives. In Ibadan, Group A saw Lagos legend, newly rebranded as Marktown Flyers, take off under a new ownership. Their rise was quick and confident and loud. Comets, Hoops and Reeds battled fairly for relevance, while Police Baton couldn't make an appearance, of course, for reasons best known to us. Meanwhile, in Port Harcourt, the Rivers Hoopers, they hosted Group B and showed why they are the defending champions. They didn't lose a game. Kwara Falcons followed in a very solid form, while Oluyole Warriors and Delta Force, failed to turn up at this league also. Then came the second phase, a single table round robin that emerged all Atlantic contenders. The Hoopers stood tall again and undefeated. Marktown Flyers, of course, former Lagos legends, dropped only 1 game to Rivers and proved their new era is no fluke. Kwara Falcons and Hoops and Reed rounded out the top 4, each with a chip on their shoulders. So the Atlantic was a story of dominance and rebirth. So Rivers Hoopers currently are chasing history. They want to make it a 3rd straight title. Lagos legend, on the other part, are reborn under a new leadership, and they have a new purpose also. They want to make things happen. Kwara Falcons, on the other hand, are finding a way to stay in that mix too. And then Hoop and Reed, last year's runner-up, are still chasing redemption. So this region is driven by storylines such as, can Rivers Hoopers become a dynasty? Can Lagos legends under Marktown reclaim the spotlight? Can Hoop and Reeds finish the final story they started from last year?
Coach Habib, you're welcome. So Coach Habib, I'm going to be asking you a question about
Thank you.
the Savannah Conference. So Coach, what do you think Boko City Chief needs to fix, heading into Port Harcourt?
Consistency, Kato. Consistency. I would say the Boko Chiefs need to be consistent. They need to play from first quarter through fourth quarter. If you notice, most of their game, they always take the lead. But by the time it gets to like third quarter or fourth quarter, they start losing steam. So I would say they have the players, they have the personnel to see this through, but they need to be very consistent all through their game.
Well, thank you so much, Tima. You're welcome back. I said, from your analyst perspective, we want to know what stood out most about the Savannah race this year. We know what stood out about the Savannah race this year.
Okay. Thank you for having me once again, and I'm really excited about this forum and what we're trying to build. Just continuing to build that conversation around. So for the Savannah conference, I think what stood out for me is the fact that we have, I would say, two sides to the Savannah conference, right? So we have teams that have already established themselves in the league, and we have teams that are trying to make a name for themselves. So teams that have established themselves in terms of Kano Pillars, they've shown that there's this standard that they've built over the years. They are organized, composed, and relentless, and they want to continue to build on that and to continue to keep that name, and let the new teams that are coming in, I'm talking Boko City Chiefs, now University, and some of the other teams in the Savannah Conference, to let them know that we have been in the system, we have been in the game, and we have been doing this thing, and this is how it works, right? But then for the Boko City Chiefs, they have that, I would say, something like, not completely similar, but what the Aces, we saw with the Aces in the WNBA, for example, losing, their game in the Minnesota Lynx about 52 points or 53 points, and then coming back to win it. So there's that twist with the Boko City Chiefs. Are we going to be seeing something like that with them in terms of, them coming back in these playoffs now to change the whole story? Or are the, kings or former kings, if I'll call it, or big name in the league, the Kano Pillars, continue to maintain dominance now that they are here? So I think that's something that stood out for me in the Savannah Conference, having to see two, new and old coming together and just bringing that force into the playoffs. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Phillip, you have seen the Atlantic up close. How hard is it to beat the Hoopers team right now? Please, can you tell us? How hard is it for any team going into Hoopers Arena, into Port Harcourt to beat Hoopers?
Like I'm saying, in the Rivers Hoopers are current defending champions, and of course they've stepped up their game. As defending champions, they've gone undefeated, following the thrashing of Kwara Falcons. Of course, Delta Force and Oluyole didn't show up for that league, but that doesn't take anything away from them. They'll be looking to guide up against other contenders in this. Talking particularly about Marktown Flyers, who transformed from Lagos Legends. So it's going to be a very interesting one, Kato.
Okay. The final eight, we're talking about 8 elite teams, battling for top 4, because after the final eight, the top 4 are going to make it to. After the final eight, the top 4 teams are going to make it to the top 4, where they will have to battle for one trophy, battle for the sole ticket to represent Nigeria at the BL. So, Tima, what team do you see as a dangerous team coming into the Final Four? What team do you really see as a dangerous team coming to the Final Four? What team should everybody be scared of seeing them in the Final Four?
So I think the teams that people should look out for expect to be in the Final Four, for me, should be a team like Kano Pillars. Like I said, they built a name. They're a dynasty. They built a name for themselves in the Nigerian League, and if anybody that has been a stakeholder and a fan and a player in the Nigerian basketball system knows that a team like Kano Pillars is not a team to be, played around with, especially with the kind of players that they have on the squad. Then the second team that I see there is, of course, the Boko City Chiefs. They've been, fighting. We'll call them the underdogs. They've been fighting ever since they got into the league, and they've been trying to make a name for themselves. I mean, within a short period of time that they've been in the league, they're already, very loud. We've seen a lot of things that we're expecting from them, especially the motivation coming from the ownership of the team. I mean, the person that owns the team, Boko City Chiefs, in the person of yeah, he has been one of the best players that Nigeria has produced, right? And he played on the national team as well. So that kind of player, bringing the kind of energy, the kind of um, experience that he has had as a player, and the experience that he has had being around basketball, it's not surprising that the Boko City Chiefs are a force to reckon with. So they are a team that I'm looking forward to seeing in the Final Four. And then the Marktown Flyers, or former Lagos Legends, are also a team that we should look at because of the young, players that they have on that team, and their zeal to want to be in that space. They are owning the space that they have right now. And then, of course, let's not forget the back-to-back champions, the Rivers Hoopers. They are still hosting this year, so they didn't lose any game in the phases. So they're definitely a team to look out for, a team that I guess the other teams should be scared of, if we're going to be using that word. So yeah, these four teams for me are the teams that we should look out for in the semifinals, or the final four.
Yeah, sorry. So, Coach Habib, looking at the
Yes, sir.
Atlantic setup as explained by Tess, what, in your opinion, how hard is it to beat the Rivers Hoopers right now?
Almost an impossible task. It's almost an impossible task, but well, this is sport, It will take a team that's so focused, that is very diligent, that's very detailed to come close to Royal Opals, because the kind of basketball they're playing now, they're playing basketball at a very high level, and we need teams to match that discipline and that level of technicality. So it's a possibility. I mean, the floor is open for everybody to compete, but we need a lot of discipline, and teams need to do their homework very well before they can cause this, what I call, upset. Thank you.
So T-Mac, let's talk about the Atlantic Conference, right? The last three champions of the league has been Atlantic teams. Let's go back to 2022 when Kwara Falcons won, Rivers Hoopers won 2023, Rivers Hoopers won 2024. So that means the whole champions have come from Atlantic. Please, I would like to know, Nigerian fans would like to know, what makes the Atlantic Conference so dominant? For the past 3 to 4 years, all the league champions have been Atlantic teams. Why are they so dominant? What makes the Atlantic Conference very dominant?
That's an interesting question. I think when it comes to, I mean, apart from the talent depth and the experience from the teams and the coaches from the Atlantic Conference, another thing that that is worthy of note is the coaching style, the player mentality, the competition and the rivalry in the Atlantic Conference. Now, the reason I say these things is because the Atlantic Conference, like we know, have coaches that have had experiences, whether as players on the national team or even during their time in the Nigerian leagues, and players who are, I would say, are willing to push themselves, right? Because there's one thing we need to understand about the game of basketball is the fact that there are players who, that there's the rivalry, the team rivalry and all of that. But then these players, most of the times, they work out with each other, they push each other to be better. So there's that competition. I would call it a healthy competition, and the rivalry. So apart from the fact that the players and the teams in the Atlantic Conference have, talent depth in terms of so many academies bringing, players to the teams in the Atlantic Conference. There is also, experience, and that experience doesn't only rally around the players, but also around the coaches. So, for example, Coach Ogo, who is like one of the biggest, coach in the Atlantic Conference. He has coached the national team. He has coached the team in Rwanda, and he continues to, get that international experience and then also merge it with the local experience here, if we'll call it local. But yeah, so I think the coaching styles of the teams in the Atlantic Conference, the competitiveness of the games in the Atlantic Conference, even looking at even the female teams, it's the same thing. You know, the competition is completely different. So most of the times when I'm not to look down on the Savannah Conference, but most of the times when the Savannah Conference teams comes to, you know, play against the Atlantic Conference teams, you always see the difference. I'm talking on the defensive style of play, on the offensive, you know, prowess of the players and of the teams, the skill sets and all of that. So I think all those things are things that sets the Atlantic Conference apart from, you know, the Savannah Conference.
Okay, so let me talk to Habib before I get to Phil. So let's look at the final 8 teams from the Savannah Conference. We have the Kano Pillars, Boko City Chiefs, Nigerian Customs, Nile University. From the Atlantic, we have the River Supers, the Martin Flyers, former Lagos Legend. We have the Kwara Falcons, and then we have the Hoops and Rings. We have these 18 top. They are all going to battle for top 4. So, if Habib, can you just tell us a team that looks like it's going to surprise the league? You know, looking at the 8 teams and a team that's going to come in and try to make a statement. You know, surprise everybody. You know, not a team that everybody's looking to win, but it's coming out to surprise everybody.
Okay. Surprisingly, you know, for the Savannah Conference, you know, my pick, you know, is on Nile University. Why I'm saying this is because they're young, they're very energetic, you know, they're hungry. And if you look at the way they played, if you look at the way they played in the season so far, they're always building on something. You know, the previous game, the next game is always better than the previous game. And this is a team that I look and, you know, they're very deep in terms of how they share responsibility amongst the players, in terms of how everybody knows the assignment and how they go about executing it, you know. So now University for me, Savannah Conference is the team to look out for. However, in Atlantic Conference, wow, it's the new bride, you know, the Lagos Legend, yes, by name, the new bride, you know, but they've been there for some time. But the ownership of Lagos Legend, which is now under Marktown Flyers, comes with a structure, you know. Somehow, you know, I find myself to be part of the coaching crew now, so I'm going to be with them in Port Harcourt for Final 8. But it's not like we're trying to blow the trumpet now. But what I see in terms of the belief that they have, in terms of the structure the owner has put in place, they want to make it something. The kind of team that does not have anything to lose, but they have everything to prove. So I'm going to be leaning towards Lagos Legend in the Final 8 from Atlantic Conference. However, like I said, the floor is open for everybody to compete, but these 2 teams, they stand out for me. Thank you.
Yeah, so very interesting perspective and insight from both Habib and T-Mac. So the final 8 has layers of drama. Boko's coaching shake-up and Lagos Legends' new identity. And Rivers, Hoopers are chasing a trifight. Kano Pillars dominance. So, from your own opinion, which storyline catches the attention the most, Kato?
For me, it's going to be the Boko City Chiefs. You know, they have a lot of talent. You know, they have a lot of talent. They had a meltdown. You know, mid-season. They had a management shake-up. They fired their coach. You know, they had a lot of expectation, and now it's redemption. You know, so they are going to be looking at trying to see how they can redeem themselves. Talent-wise, I think that's like the team that has the most talent. They have the most talented roster. You know, they fired their coach mid-season, so they are going to be looking at redemption. So it's a story that everybody's going to be looking out for. Like, we want to see how they are going to redeem themselves. We want to see how they are going to be able to, you know, make use of the talent that they have on their roster, you know, to break through for like, this is the 3rd season since Boko City Chiefs had the new owner, Jose Kator, and then they've been chasing the championship, they've been chasing the title, and they haven't been able to go through. So maybe this could be the season for Boko City Chiefs. So my guess for the storyline is, you know, can Boko City Chiefs break through this year? Will they find redemption for the season? Will they break through? You know, will they finally get the ticket to the bar? So that's the story I personally will be watching and be waiting out to see the outcome.
So thank you, Kato. So let me beam the satellite also on T-Mac. You know, she happens to come from the south. So I will ask her also. Timac, what storyline defines these final eight before we move on to final four?
League. For me, I think other than the fact that I'm from the south or from the south or a Port Harcourt girl, the Rivers Troopers stand out for me. Like their storyline stands out for me, and that's because of the weight that the expectations that is on them at this point. You know, they are hosting again for the second time against all odds. Let's not forget, against all odds, there has been a lot of propaganda, distractions, dragging, if we want to call it that. So the expectations for the River Supers is really, really high. Hosting again comes with so many responsibilities, right? So how will the River Supers be able to match the energy from, the media that we've seen, from the stakeholders, from the politics, how would they be able to match the energy from the international communities watching? Because now they've gone to the BAL twice and they've hosted, one time out of those two times. And there is so much rivalry against, it's as though the River Troopers are one team against the other 16 teams in the league or the other 1 million people in the Nigerian basketball space, right? So how are they going to match that energy? And now that they're hosting again, are they going to give us a three-peat, winning for the third time and while hosting for the second time with everything that's going on with all the storylines and everything? Because if they don't win, it's going to be, a really interesting discussion online. And I'm not just wait and see how everything plays out. But basically, my storyline that would define the final eight is, how the River Supers will be able to match the energy, from all of the things that has been going on so far, with them hosting the league. Yeah, so that's it.
I'm going to go through everybody. So, Philly, let me start with you first. Who's going to make the top four? We want to hear your prediction. Let's know the teams that are going to make the top four and tell us why you think that they can make the top four.
Okay, sorry. I think let's see how, on the basis of each team's form. For me, I'll pick on Rivers. Talking about my top four to make it to the final four. I'm looking at from the Atlantic Conference, Rivers Hoopers and Marktown, formerly Lagos Legend. Then from the Savannah Conference, I'm looking at Boko Hits and Kanu Pillars.
All right, so Timac, over to you. Even though Philip did not tell me why he feels many of these teams will make the top four, Timac, please, I want to know your prediction. Who's making the top four, and give us reason why you feel they can make the top four.
Okay, so luckily for me, this is not the same question as the female finals where you put us on a hot seat to predict the winners. And me and myself and Mr. Philip were on the losing end on that one because we're hoping that First Bank would win. But for the top four, I think my answer is the same as Mr. Phillips from the Atlantic Conference, the River Supers, of course. I hope to see them in the final four. And then Marktown Flyers, the reason I say the River Supers is because they've done that twice. They've won the championship twice. So it's just natural to trust them to still have that winning spirit and zeal to continue and get a third win, right? And then for the Marktown Flyers, they are a young team. Yes, there has been some changes in terms of ownership and all of that, but I think there's a driving force with that team that they are bringing into. I mean, I was chatting with one of the players on the team, and he was like, he's not going to say too much. Let's just see how the games go. But they are really ready. They are prepared, and all of that kind of stuff. And then with how they've performed so far, the performance, they're looking pretty good. So I think they're going to bring in that continuous energy into the final four. And then on the Savannah Conference, the Boko City Chiefs, like we all know, this team are like the underdog. They have a point to prove. They want to prove a point. And, now they have another opportunity to play in the final eight, even though they had a rough, situation in the second phase or the first phase or second phase of the league. But they were able to still withstand the challenges, and now they're here. So I think most of the times, as much as we've all been players, and most times you learn. There's something Coach Habib also mentioned in some of his posts about how the hot cold team, even though they lose, they learn. So you need to understand that when people lose, sometimes you learn the most lessons from a loss. So I see the Boko City Chiefs as a team that would have learned a lot from their situation and will be here to show us what they've learned and how they are able to correct, or how they will be able to correct those mistakes learned. And then the last team, of course, is the Kano Pillars. Like I mentioned from earlier on, the Kano Pillars are a team that have made a name for themselves in the Nigerian league already. And the fact that they are still here standing strong is enough proof for us to know that they are ready for this final. So I see them also in the final four. So yeah, that's my take.
3-star general. What do you think? Would that help the team in any way?
If in that book is still the top team, sorry.
Uzoma.
Azoma.
Yeah, Azoma DK. Yeah. So let's talk in terms of structure now. Tessie, I would bounce this back to you. Let's talk in terms of structure. How has the league, of course, irrespective of the fact that we've not had enough games, how has the league improved vis-a-vis our international competitions? Have you seen any improvements?
Well, in terms of structure, I think I would focus more on the teams rather than on the federation, because when it comes to the federation, we know that there is no structure. This is not how basketball should be run. This is not how basketball is run anywhere in the world, especially in a place where there is progressive basketball, right? But the teams, I think, are doing pretty well. They, recruitment processes, getting experienced coaches, having multiple coaching staff, having, for example, we know that hospital is not even in the league yet, but look at what they have. They're providing healthcare for their teams, right? For their players and all those things. So all those structures that the individual teams are already putting in place for their teams, the fact that team owners are beginning to understand the importance of their players, right? Coaches, in a way, protecting their players more than we used to see before. So I think when it comes to structure, Nigerian basketball structure, it is more in the teams, right? And it is more on the what the players can benefit. That is where I'm seeing some structure. That is where I'm seeing some growth. That is where I'm seeing some promising, factors that can be considered that in terms of growth in the Nigerian basketball. But the federation itself, we're yet to see structure. Hopefully after the, elections next year and the new government, whoever comes in, we can begin to see, okay, what are they bringing in terms of their policies, in terms of their structure, how they want to, bring in investors or any of those things to the space. And then we can begin to talk about, okay, now we have a different structure and the teams can now, have a government, a system that shows them the proper way to run things without them going out of their way to try to do anything outside. It's as if where everybody's just doing what they please, like what they want to do. And it's not a good, like, I think I watched a video where someone says we don't have, that was Farotimi, Dele, I think that's his name, Dele Farotimi. He mentioned something about how Nigeria, now I'm taking it, outside of the context of basketball. Nigeria we don't have leaders, we have rulers, right? I think I can apply that same statement to the Nigerian basketball. We don't have leaders, we have rulers. And a ruler is somebody that just wants to stay in power and continue to control the system. But a leader is someone that takes people and then sees it or has a vision and then shows them that this is the vision that I have, and it's transparent and it's open and everybody can bring in their suggestions, because this is supposed to be a democratic system where people are able to communicate how and express how they feel and what they think should work for the system. And then together we can put in our minds and see how we can change or bring in the change that we want to see. So we don't have leaders in our basketball structure. We have rulers, people who just want to impose their own opinions on other people. And because of that, there is no structure, not in the refereeing, the statisticians or the table officials or the referees. Like I said, the only place where I see some form of structure is in the team, in the management, and the government of within the team structures. That's where there's structure, a little bit of structure. So other than the teams, there's no structure in the Nigerian basketball. Let's not even try to sugarcoat anything. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Tess, for your candid opinion and perspective on that. So, Coach Habib, looking at from the coaching angle to things, has there been any development whatsoever, talking in terms of coaching vis-a-vis the Nigerian league, and then how do you relate it to when we go out to play internationally also? Are the coaches well equipped? What's the quality of coaching in Nigerian league ecosystem?
What I can say basically is
All right, thanks, Coach Aviv. So Tess, I believe you are in the diaspora at the moment. Looking from outside inward, what do you think? Basketball is not just about the game. It's entertainment, fanfare. It's a business. So for our league, what are those things? Because I always believe in what I call constructive criticisms. If you are saying this, then what are those things you need to put into play? Fine, we're talking about the final eight, but these are also subject matters and issues that relate to making this event a better one. So from your perspective out there, what do you think could be done better to make basketball as a business, entertainment, a showcase better than what it is currently?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Phillip, for this question. This is actually a subject that has been, bothering me, and I've been trying to I've done a few, research on it in terms of how we can close the gap between the Nigerian basketball and what we have in Asia or the US or Euro basketball. The space is, the gap is so wide. It is too wide, in fact. There's so much that we can do. The governing system, first of all, like we mentioned, the structure, the governing system has to change. There has to be people that have visions and people that are willing to bring that change and enforce that change. So we need people that can be transparent, people that can bring the change that we need in the governing system, first of all. Secondly, fan engagement. Basketball, like you mentioned, Mr. Phillip, and like we all know, is a business. Apart from the fact that it's entertainment and all of that, it is a business. So how can Nigerian basketball stand out like we have in the music industry, in the movie industry? These people don't have two heads. Look at how much funds and how much sponsorships the movie, like if I'm a rich person, I would invest in by the grace of God, I'll be a rich person. I will invest in the Nigerian Nollywood sector. Why would I do that? Because there are innovators. Look at what Funke Akindele is doing. Look at what Bimbo Ademoye is doing. Look at what all these producers and writers, and they have the movie industry is so rich. There's so much talent, even though I know that there's still a lot that they can do. So if we can bring in, there are so many people that, because of what they are doing in the movie and the music industry, there are so many investors, deep investors. People are willing to bring in their monies. They're willing to put their monies into this sport. I did flag football last year, and I saw within that small space of flag football, there are a group that are coming up, but they've done so much already. There are so many millionaires, investors in flag football. I was talking with one of the new teams that came out last year, Lagos Lions. I was trying to get them 2 investors. And these 2 investors are people that one of them wanted to also invest in basketball. But then after looking at the space, he's like, what is really going on in basketball? He lost interest. So if we can build our basketball, then we would have the mouth, we will have the guts, we will have the evidence to show an investor that they can come in. And what will bring an investor? Fan engagement, media participation. We need to expose our basketball. Basketball is not a game that is played under a bed or under a table. It's a global sport. So we should make it global by involving the media. Look at the issues that we were having in the was it the women's league? Yeah, in the second phase. They were asking some people to stream and some people were not allowed to stream. People are coming to stream the game so that other people can watch. And we can have people watching our basketball. And there's restrictions because we're giving platforms to a few people. Let us have more engagement. Let us have more people showing the game. More participation is what we need. And because that is what is going to drive investors to come into the game. Instead of limiting or closing the spaces that we don't even have. So how can we bring in more people? That is something that we need to start focusing on. How can we engage more fans, more followership, bring in more what's the word? People, celebrities, because those people have fan bases. If a celebrity from movie or music something is within the basketball space, imagine a Mr. Easy or let me not even go and call those top A-list people. Even the smaller people on the B and C list, if they can bring their fan base, if somebody like I don't even know who to call, one of these Big Brother people, Tacha or something, says she's going to watch a basketball game. Oh, my fans, pull up. How can we have minds, people that can bring in such people into basketball? That's what we need to start thinking about. That's what we need to start doing. So those are some things that I feel like we can do. Fan engagement, a better governing system, people that have visions and are innovators that can bring in those investors and bring in that capital and try to bring in the right people that can continue to shine that light in basketball.
Port Harcourt is ready. The city, the fans, the atmosphere. That's where champions are going to be made. 8 teams, 2 conferences, 1 dream. The road ends there. So everything's got a story. So now is the time. Back there, they're going to write their last chapter. Final 8, Final 4. So the prediction is anyone's. All the teams are all logged in for battle. So let's see how things go. So I want to thank everyone very much for being with us and for all our viewers out there globally who've been hooked up to us on One Sport TV. We thank you very much. We'll be streaming most of the games live from Port Harcourt, Nigeria, in Rivers State. So we look forward to you. We look forward